So in today's tutorial, we are going to look at Swagger API documentation, and the agenda is right in front of you. In our milestone 1, we'll start by understanding the basic of Swagger. Then we'll create our own Swagger file and understand how Swagger and its syntax works. Then we'll understand the local setup of Swagger so you can do local development with it. And at the end, we'll combine Swagger with Redoc and see how we can create a beautiful, amazing UI for our API documentation. So gang, let's get started. So the first question that appears in our mind is, what is Swagger and why do we need it? Swagger helps API developers to create documentation, amazing interactable documentation for their APIs. We write these API documentations in normal files like JSON files or YAML files, but Swagger internally converts it into a format that machines can understand. And we can make the API calls directly from our documentation, understand it, change it, and do a lot of amazing stuff. So let us start by looking at a basic sample API documentation that Swagger provides to us. So to understand our Swagger file, we'll need to visit editor.swagger.io, where we can edit our Swagger files or look at sample Swagger files that Swagger has provided us according to the OpenAPI specification. This is what a Swagger file looks like. As you can see on the left side, it is a normal YAML file with keys and values in it. And on the right side is the complete UI presentation of this YAML file. What we have here is the entire documentation for an API. If we look at the right side and we see all the different endpoints, you can see that there is a base URL or a base endpoint provided here, at the end of which all the other different paths for the APIs will be appended. So for example, petstore3.swagger.io /API /v3, and for this put request it will be /pet, which is to update a existing pet. So we have all our pet related API requests inside this namespace called pet. Similarly, we have all the store related API requests or API endpoints inside this store namespace. If we look at the pet one, we have this particular API. You can see there is a very good UI provided here through which we can look at the put request, post request, get request, delete request. All of them are properly coded and properly provided along with the API endpoint and a description here. If we open up this particular API endpoint, we'll see a lot of other details here. You can see the description that this API will be used for updating an existing pet. You can see the parameters. For now, there are no parameters in this request. You can see the request body here directly, and you can change them between different kind of request bodies, different formats. You can use JSON, you can use XML, you can use encoded forms, and all these different kind of formats are available here, and they will change when you choose them. The UI or the request body will change accordingly, and you can directly look at that here. If you look at JSON, you can see that for updating an existing pet, we can provide the ID, we can provide the name, the category, and the pet will be accordingly updated. So this is the complete documentation for one imaginary API, which is a pet API. And this is the request. If you look at the responses, we can provide different responses for different response codes. You can see 200 successful operation response. We can again provide different kind of responses, JSON or XML. You can see the response body here also, which we are getting for the same dog that we updated here. Similarly, we can provide different response codes. You can see here 400, 404, 405, and all the different response codes available here. So Swagger in this way provides an amazing UI to check all your API documentation and share it with your team and other developers to look at. You can even try them out here, and you can execute this API request, and it will actually send the API request and get the response back for you. So this is what it looks like. It is making a curl request here, and it will get the response back for you. So this is amazing, and we are going to look at how to create such a Swagger API documentation for ourselves for an imaginary restaurant that we're going to create. To start from the very basics, what we are going to do is we are going to remove all of this data inside the sample Swagger file, and we're going to leave only one single endpoint. So the endpoint that we're going to leave is this endpoint only that we looked at, the update pet endpoint. So let's go down, and in this YAML file, you can see there are different paths. Each of these paths refer to a different API endpoint. For example, /pet for put, /pat /find by status for get request, and all that. So what we're going to do is we're going to go to /pat, and we need the put request only. We want to delete everything else. So we'll delete everything below this. The /pat ends here, the put request, and the post request begins from here. This post request begins from line number 81. So we are going to remove everything below this, choose it and remove it. And the post request has been removed. You can see on the right side it reflected the status as it is. The put post request has been removed. So now we're going to remove this /pet /find by status also, this get request. I removed it, and now on the right side, the change has been reflected. So what we're going to do is we're going to remove all the rest of the endpoints. We'll select, we'll go down, and the endpoints, these are still all endpoints you can see. And now we'll remove only until this part. No, we'll not remove the components because components are separate. I'll show what components are, but for now, just leave out the components and delete only the endpoints. When I press the escape or the delete button, you'll see it has deleted all the API documentation for rest of the APIs. So this is how you can delete it and come up with a very clean Swagger file. Now you can see that there are still these namespaces or these tags appearing here for store and user, which we don't need because we are only going to need the pet username or the pet namespace. So you can see here tags, which provides all the tags or namespaces for all the different APIs. So we are going to remove the store and the user one and only going to leave the pet. So now we have only our pet namespace available here. Now let us jump into the components part. Within components, we can see there is a sub key called schemas in which there are different number of schemas provided. These schemas basically define one thing. They define the request and the response bodies. So we can create these schemas at one point like this, for example, for the orders or for the customers, and we can reuse them here by referring to them in our request bodies or our response bodies. As you can see that there is a schema here within components. There is a schema, and that schema is referred to by the name pet. So let's find out this pet schema. As you can scroll down, you will find this pet schema somewhere. Here is the pet schema. You can see that there are two required fields here, name and photos URL. So if we open this up, this pet schema, this name and this photos URL are what are required. Now we can look at the whole schema here. This whole schema that has been defined here, that we are looking at here, is available here. So we can look at the ID, which is of type integer, format in 64. An example is also given, which is 10. And the same example we are looking at here. So this is the whole schema that has been defined. Let's look at the next key. Next key is name, which is of type string, and the example is doggy. So you can see the example is doggy appearing here. Similarly, there is a category, and this category is internally pointing to another schema, which is the category schema. There is a photos URL, which is a type array. There is a tags. There is a status, which is of type enum, and all the different types are available here. So this is where we define all our schemas so we can reuse them whenever we want. Now, in the next step, what we're going to do is we're going to remove all the schemas that we do not require since we have deleted all the other APIs also. So let's delete this user schema. We don't need this. Let's delete the address schema. We are not going to need this. Let's delete the customer schema and as well as the order schema, which we're not going to need this also. So categories and tag and pet, we are going to require this. Why do we need category and tag for now? Because pet is pointing to them, and we do not want to remove them. Otherwise, this will start giving us errors. We'll remove this API response also. We'll remove the request bodies. This is all extra stuff that you can add or remove. There are some security schemas and API keys that you can provide for all your APIs, but this is a little bit advanced. So we're going to remove this for now. We're not going to look at because right now we're going to look at all the basics for now. We're going to remove this. And now we have our basic. Okay, I think we have an error here. Security requirements must match a security definition. I think the security, yeah, here the security requirements are defined here also in the put request. So because we removed the security definitions from below, we need to remove from here also to make it consistent everywhere. And now there is no error. So now you can see that we have a very minimalistic API file for us, which we can edit and create our own API out of. You can see that there is a pet endpoint here for updating the pets, which is a put endpoint. We have our three schemas which are required for us. And we have some metadata here, which we will soon see how to edit all this and add our own data here and make it more personalized. All right, gang. So we have completed the first milestone in which we had to look at the basics of the API documentation in Swagger. Now we'll go to the second milestone, which is creating our own API documentation. We'll start from the top. Let's look at this title. We are going to create the API documentation for a restaurant. So let's make it Lala Restaurant API Docs. So this is the name of my restaurant, and my API docs are here, so I'll provide that. There is a description. We'll provide a very basic description for one. For now, we'll not require to provide a very heavy description like this. So I'll remove all this, and I'll say this doc contains the API documentation for the API written for my restaurant, and that will appear here, which is very simple and minimalistic. Our terms of services, I don't have any terms of services, but I'll specify my own site, the site for fastdose.com, and I'll remove this. I don't need the email for now. License, we'll keep it as Apache license because it is an open source license, so we can use it. And find out more about Swagger. We don't need this. Find out more about Swagger. We'll remove this. For the endpoint, this is the base URL which will be used for all the APIs, for all the API endpoints. So it will be like patch.3.swagger.io slash API slash v3 slash pet. So let's make this Lala Restaurant API.com slash v1, which is fine. So this is obviously imaginary URL. There's no URL like this. And in our tags, we'll specify it as order, everything about your menu orders. So we're going to write all our order related documentation, API documentation here. Order means order in a restaurant for any food or anything. So we'll remove this external docs. Don't need any external docs here. Now we have our paths. Our paths means our API endpoints. So our API endpoint is going to be lalarestaurantapi.com slash v1 slash, I'll put here as order, and I'm going to make it a post request, which means I'm going to create a new order in case someone comes into my restaurant and tries to order something new. Then I want to specify that order here. This API endpoint, this post API endpoint, will handle all the new incoming orders. We'll specify that tag as the tag we have specified here on the top. Copy and paste here. Summary: handle taking a new order for the restaurant. Makes sense? Description: handles taking a new order for the restaurant, returns success or false based on availability of the item. For example, if someone comes in and orders a pizza and we do not have the raw material to create a pizza or to cook a pizza right now, so we will return false. But if we have the materials and we can cook it and the chef is also free, then we'll return a success. Operation ID: create food order. Let's make it more simple, more intuitive to us. We'll write food here. Request body. Description is take the order details. Our schema. Now this is where the real good thing comes in. So you have to define the schema. What is the schema? What is it that you're going to take in an order? So in an order we might take different things, but when you're visiting a restaurant and a waiter comes in and you tries to give an order, what kind of details do you give them? There are only two details that we give them. We give them the name of the order or the name of the item that we want to eat. I want to eat a pasta, I want to eat pizza, and we provide the amount in which we need it. So one full plate pasta or half plate pasta, or two full plate pasta, or two pizzas, two medium pizzas, two large pizzas, and all that stuff. But this is going to vary for different orders. For example, if I'm ordering a pizza, I can order a large pizza or a medium pizza, or a small pizza or a regular pizza. But when I'm ordering an ice cream, there are no sizes in ice cream. We can say small and medium and large, but there's no regular size in ice creams. So this is going to be a more generic sort of order, and if we can provide more generic information. For now, we are going to remove this XML part. We don't need XML. We are only going to support JSON. We are going to require that bot request body. Yes, request body is required. So we'll say required equal to true. Responses, we'll have only two responses, 200 response, which is success, a 404 response, which means we cannot create it or not found. Does that make sense? Yeah, I think it makes sense. So in description, we'll say successful operation, or we can say order fulfilled. And here we'll say Order cannot be fulfilled. I hope the spelling is correct. Now we are going to specify our schemas here. I'm going to remove this part here. I don't need XML. I only need JSON. So I'm going to specify a new schema here. I'll call it new order, and here also I'm going to say it new order. Now, obviously, we are getting error here because there is no schema called as new order, so we'll need to create it. So we'll go down here, we'll remove the categories and we'll remove the tags. We'll remove both of this. And instead of pet, I'll specify new order. I'll remove this category, so it won't give me this error. I'll remove this tag, so it won't give me the error. And now we have our schema ready, new order schema. So if we open this up, we have order tag, everything about menu orders fine. I'll open this up. There is one API endpoint here called slash order, which is a post API endpoint, which is for handling taking a new order for the restaurant. Makes sense. It will return a success or false based on the availability of the item. If we look at the request body, it does not make any sense. We are specifying a name of a dog here and photo URLs and stuff, which we're going to change very soon. If we see, the XML has been removed because we don't need XML. We can see XML has been removed here from here also, and we can see there are two kind of responses, 200 and 404. If we go down at our schemas, you can see that there is only one schema for a new order schema. So let's change this. We'll go down here, we'll say instead of ID, we'll call it item name, which will be a type of string. Example is, well, I don't know, something, pizza. Let's just like pizza only. So I'll write capsicum. So capsicum pizza. On the next one, we'll specify amount, or you can say size, which is a type string again. An example is regular. What else do we need in an order? Is that all we need? Yeah, I think that is fine. A very minimalistic order. I'll just write a comments, additional comments. If someone needs to provide some additional comments, for example, make it spicy, put more cheese and stuff, so we can write that here. And I'll just make it a type string, and our example will be, please make it hand tossed and put extra cheese. So this is something, this is a more generic field, this comments field, or you can say request field or description field, in which different users can provide different kind of requests. Everyone has their own different taste buds. So someone likes things more spicy, someone likes things less spicy. So a person can come in here and provide it according to their need. No, not everyone is going to provide a request, right? Because not everyone has a specific choice. They can just order something, just eat it. So in this required field, we are only going to provide item name and our size. And this request, or let's just make comments make more sense. Comments does not have to be there because not everyone is going to have a comment. And this is our first Swagger API documentation that we have created for ourselves. You can see on the right side that the item name capsicum pizza is appearing, size regular, comments please make it hand tossed and put extra cheese. Fine. You can see our responses, order fulfilled. In our 200 response, we can see capsicum pizza, size regular, comments, right? And the same responses here also. So let's make it a bit different. We'll say new order response and new order request. That makes sense. We'll copy it, paste it here. We'll copy this whole thing, paste it down below, and just call it new order response. And in this new order response, there will be only one thing here, which will be status. It will be a type string. An example will be your food is cooking, or we can just say your food will be ready in 20 minutes. So we can see here a status is appearing now. Your food will be ready in 20 minutes. Some status, your food will be ready in 20 minutes. Your food will be delayed. Your food will be before time. Any kind of status. I just wanted to make the request body different from the response body. So you can see they are now different. And this is our first Swagger API documentation file from top to bottom. All right. So our next milestone in these milestones are setting up Swagger on our local and doing local development with Swagger. So you can see that there is an option called generate server here. In this generate server option, you can Swagger can create all different kind of servers for you, whichever one you like, whichever one you are most comfortable with, or you can install most easily and do Swagger API documentation on your local also. I've already clicked on this Node.js server and downloaded the Node.js server on my local. So we'll start with that and see how it can be run on local. So this is my downloaded Node.js server from Swagger website, and you can see that it contains a basic HTML file, sorry, basic JavaScript index JavaScript file, which all Node.js servers have, and we can see that our API documentation is being pointed to a local file with an API folder called openapi.yaml, which is this one, and we can start our server here and do whatever we want. So what we'll do is I already have a terminal open right here, and I'll say npm start, which will start the server, and then we can see all these changes in our local and edit them and do whatever we want. Of course, you're going to need to install Node.js on your local, which I already installed. Node.js already along comes with npm, so you want to install npm separately. And it has started the server on this localhost 8080/docs. So this is our localhost 8080/docs. You can see we have the same API documentation here, which we had in this. And I have made a single change here, which is instead of saying Lala restaurant API docs, I made it my Lala API docs. And the reason for that is I want to show you how you can edit this on your local and then check the server changes on your local only. So we'll go back to our VS Code, and inside this open API.yaml, I'm going to remove this again. I'm going to save it. I'm going to go to the terminal. I'm going to close the terminal and start the server again. You can use nodemon if you want. I'm only using node.js directly, so it won't restart the server on its own. And now the server is restarted, so I'll go here and I'll refresh, and you can see that on my local the changes appeared. So this process will mostly happen very fast if you use XAMPP server, or maybe use nodemon instead of directly node. But this is how it happens. If you want to use some any other servers from here, you can use any other server of your liking, and it will run on your local. So let's go and move to our next milestone.
Okay, so the final thing required in this is connecting Swagger with Redoc. Redoc provides us with a basic static website, and that static website looks really good. Instead of this Swagger UI, we'll get a different UI. So what we need to do is we need to just go onto the internet and search for something called Swagger with Redoc. Sorry, Redoc with Swagger. This link opens up. We can open this link, and we have a static website here, some static code which we can copy. And what this code is basically doing is it is pointing to the Redoc CDN, and it is pointing to our Swagger YAML file. Now this Swagger YAML file, we'll need to replace this with our own local file. So I already have that file in my downloads folder, and I'll take that file from here and put it inside my working directory. So this is now the file that I have. What I can do is I can just specify my own file instead of this old cloud file, openapi.yaml. And this CDN is outdated, so that is why we need this second link, which is Redoc CDN. This is the one where we can fetch the CDN from. Copy this CDN link and just replace it here. And this will do. And we can start a live server. And we can see that Redoc has provided us with a very nice documentation on a static website page. If I scroll down, you can see this on the left side, it opens up automatically. If I scroll up, it closes up automatically. So this is really good. We can see the request body and the response body on the right side. We can expand it here and look at it. So the Redoc is basically a very good UI enhancement over the only already existing Swagger UI, and you can download the original Swagger from here also. And you can host this on any static hosting like S3 buckets or wherever you want to host it. And this is really great. All these links I'll provide in the description so you can take it up from there. And this concludes our tutorial with Swagger and Redoc.